romantic relationship with Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis. Both are African Americans. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
CHP is still working on a crash at Rancho Cucamonga, 2 lanes block 210 westbound before Day Creek Boulevard, and traffic jams up back at Citrus Avenue. In Pomona, got an accident on the 71 southbound and Mission Boulevard. Fast lane is blocked off, and that's why you're still back at the 10 and the 57. And got an accident now in Pico Rivera on the 605 southbound past Whittier Boulevard. He's stuck in the carpool lane and traffic backing up towards Peck Road, and that's getting worse. And got a crash in Carson, blocking 2 mid lanes right now, 91 westbound at Avalon Avenue. You're going to slow down at Cherry.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Another poor defensive effort by the Lakers led to another loss Tuesday night. The Lakers gave up 138 points to Atlanta. They lost by 16. Over the past 2 games, the Lakers have given up a combined 273 points. The Lakers did not have Anthony Davis. He sat out with a sore left hip and a sore Achilles tendon. Austin Reeves led the Lakers with 28 points. LeBron had 20 points and 8 assists. The Lakers are back under 500 for the 14th time this season. They're at Boston Thursday night. The Clippers are back in action tonight. They're at Washington. Game 4 of their 7-game road trip, 4 p.m. tip-off. Former Lakers guard Rajon Rondo is in trouble. Rondo was arrested after he was pulled over on a highway in southern Indiana. Rondo was charged with illegal possession of a gun and drugs possession. Rondo helped the Lakers win the NBA championship in 2021. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate is king.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things. Increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice.
We want cleaner air.
Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough. 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 If we care enough.
Loving you is easy 'cause you're beautiful. Making love with you is all I wanna do. Loving you is more than just a dream come true. And everything that I do is out of loving you.
Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African-American man, I am in Central Park, He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the ramble. I don't know.
Thank you.
As I said earlier today, letting you know that Christian Cooper will be our guest in this hour. Every time I hear that clip or see it, I get angry all over again. It just makes my skin crawl every time I hear it. The extent to which some of these fellow citizens will go is beyond me. Our guest in this hour is Christian Cooper, the lifelong birder who turned a racist incident in New York Central Park into an opportunity to spread the word about black birding across the world as host of the Nat Geo program, Extraordinary Birder. And he has a new book. It's called Better Living Through Birding, Notes from a Black Man in the Natural World. I'm going to play a clip for you of his Nat Geo program here in just a moment after I welcome Christian Cooper to this program. Christian, how are you, sir?
Hi, Tavis. Thanks for having me.
Man, it's my great delight to have you on. You doing all right?
I'm doing okay. Every time I hear that clip, though, my stress level goes up a little bit. It's getting better with the passage of time. But...
Well, I don't mean to raise your blood pressure, brother. I don't want to do that to you. But trust me, as I said, it does the same thing to me every time I hear it. Let me just, a couple of things about that. I know you've discussed this 1,000 times, but a couple of things about it, and we'll move on. Because I think with time, to your point, it impacts you differently. And when I hear it now, I hear it differently now than I did when I first heard it. And that is a way of saying to you that I am amazed the more I hear this at how calm you were, or certainly appeared to be in that moment. I've been in situations where I am not pleased to say I lost my cool. I wrote in one of my books, I have a chapter, and the title of the chapter is that even when you're justified, you want to remain dignified. That's the goal. Even when you're justified, you want to remain dignified. Not always easy to do, but that's the goal here. But when I hear that tape now, all this time later, I hear a black man who, under those circumstances, when the cops are being called on you, somebody's lying on you, you were relatively calm and kept it together in that moment. Is that what you hear?
Well, it's embarrassing to admit, but the reason why I was able to be so calm in the face of it is that I'm a nerd and a lifelong nerd. And when my hero through all of my life, but starting very early, was Mr. Spock on Star Trek, the Vulcan, who did not give in to his emotions, was always acting rationally. So whenever I feel my emotions started sort of going out of control, my automatic response is to pull back and just shut down emotionally and say, okay, the only way to deal with this is to act rationally. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did in that moment. And happily, it worked out well. I mean, I say this to a lot of people I've talked to, which is that in this modern day and age, the person who remains calm wins in a confrontation. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's always true, but I think in a lot of times it's true. If you're the one who can keep your cool and just act rationally, I think that's going to serve you well, particularly in our modern era where, sound bites and video clips can be taken out of context. And if you lose your cool even for a moment and you're acting all wild, they can pull that out of context and say, look at this crazy person.
Yeah. So. I take your point. That is a whole lot easier said than done. That's why I said the goal is to remain dignified, rather, even when you're justified. You were certainly justified in going off, but you remain dignified in that moment. And I think you're right that particularly, and I think, and your comment particularly strikes me as a person of color, that we are being put upon in so many ways, and all these Karens, as they are now called, that lady's name was Amy, in your face, but all these Karens, as they are called colloquially, are in our faces for all kinds of things. There's going to be more of that. It ain't going to get better. It's going to get worse before it ever gets better, if it gets better. And I take Christian Cooper's advice that if you can be the person in the situation who can remain calm, not always easy, but if you can do that, I think in the end he's probably right that you win, although I ain't always passed that test, and I confess that. Just getting started in conversation with our guest, the bird watcher, Christian Cooper, has an amazing show on Nat Geo, a new book. I'll play some of the sound of his Nat Geo program when we come forward, and we'll delve into this text. I'm delighted to have Christian Cooper right now on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin Ultra Soft on the party, less is more, so roll it back, everybody. Charmin's irresistibly soft and hella nice. The grip is always soft. It's our party vibe. It's cushioning things so our cheeks feel flat. So what? Everybody wanna touch the sky.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Drop that.
You like your style, guy?
At KBLA Talk 1580, we are unapologetic about amplifying the voices of those who have historically been left out of the conversation. As we approach our 3rd anniversary this summer, the problem with talk radio in Southern California specifically, and America more broadly, is virtually unchanged. All day, all night, all white. We make no apologies for our prime audience, but true to the best of our tradition, we're committed to expanding justice and freedom for all. So when we receive messages from listeners like Neil, we just smile.
I realize that I'm not your target demographic, but I love listening to your station as it is the only progressive station on the dial.
That's us. Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley, and the world's most famous black bird watcher, Christian Cooper, host of his own program now on Nat Geo called Extraordinary Birder, and author of a new book called Better Living Through Birding, Notes from a Black Man in the Natural World. Here now some sound from his brilliant Nat Geo program, Extraordinary Birder.
Getting a little Hitchcockian out there.
Oh, that's nothing, my friend.
I'm really starting to feel like Tippi Hedren.
Have you ever seen this many ravens at once?
No.
It's nutty.
I mean, this is the kind of thing you expect to see with, starlings.
Yep.
Ravens, a bird that size.
I know. That's what's so weird about it. This may be the largest raven roost in the world. It's the largest one I know of. And we have had counts of 6,500 ravens, and it's a nightly occurrence. I've never seen less than 1,500. You'll see them move up onto these low lines, and that's where they roost.
A gathering of ravens is called a conspiracy, though the origin of this term isn't known. It may be related to how they gather in large groups around a food source.
This is sort of a very convenient central point between a whole lot of resources. There's a huge urban area, including Palm Springs, just over those hills. And where there are humans, there are opportunities for ravens. I like to call this Ravenville.
This is the time right now when they're getting ready to head out in pairs.
Yep, we're right at the start of the breeding season. They're gonna lay eggs this big, and in 6 weeks, those are gonna be full-sized ravens.
6 weeks!
And until the eggs hatch, we don't see dead baby tortoises. But as soon as the eggs hatch, that's when the dead baby tortoises show up.
This is a baby desert tortoise.
There's a thin spot in the middle of the bottom of the shell. Ravens know right where the thin spot is, flip them over, boom.
They're just trying to raise their babies and make sure they survive.
Correct. It's natural behavior at an unnatural density. This ecosystem isn't designed to have the number of ravens that are just hanging out in Palm Springs. It's like, that's on us.
The program's called Extraordinary Birder. It is on Nat Geo. I highly recommend it. We'll talk about that as we move through this hour with Christian Cooper. And once again, his new book, Better Living Through Birding, Notes from a Black Man in the Natural World. For starters, Christian, that reference to Tippi Hedren got my attention. I've seen that movie, The Birds, 1,000 times. And every time I see it, it still weirds me out.
Well, that's fiction, and birds generally do not attack people unless you're like near, the nest of birds, and then they might come at you. But otherwise, birds are generally more afraid of us than we are of them.
Yeah. All right. So give me, before we get too deep into this, give me, and give the audience, those who've not heard this, the backstory, give me the Christian Cooper bird watching backstory. How did this all begin for you? How did this become your muse, so to speak?
Oh, gosh. My parents put me in this wood shop working class for some reason that is inexplicable to me because I have no affinity for power tools or lumber. Still don't. But, and I had to build either a footstool or a bird feeder. And fortunately, I picked a bird feeder. Otherwise, I would probably be a podiatrist right now. And I put it up in the backyard. And I got really curious about the birds that started showing up. It was particularly this all-black bird, but it had a patch of red at the shoulder of the wing, and I'm like, oh my God, I've discovered a new species of crow. And I was all excited, and then I found out they were red-winged blackbirds, so oops, no. But that was the start of it, and it just kind of sucked me in. And then not long after that, because both my parents were teachers, and my dad in particular was a science teacher, so nature was always big in our household, and they took us on a cross-country camping trip. Me, my sister, the family dog, and my parents crammed into a little VW camper going cross-country for hours, driving past cornfields. Not much to do. One of the few books we had was a field guide to the birds of North America, so I was just flipping through it, to pass the time. And then by the time we reached the West Coast, a bird would fly by at a rest stop, and I'd go, oh, look, Mom and Dad, there goes a black-billed magpie. And they'll look at me like, how the hell does he know that? And it's because I remembered the book. So.
So I hear the backstory, and I'm glad I asked that question. So I get it now. But over the years, I mean, there are all kinds of things that we are titillated by, that we find fascinating and interesting as kids, but that doesn't become a lifelong obsession. Why have you stuck with it all these years? Put another way, what does bird watching do for Christian Cooper?
Exactly. Well, I think it does for me what it does for a lot of people, in which what I hope more black people will tune into, which is that it is incredibly powerfully restorative to be out in nature and to have your focus, because you've got to be focused if you want to see the birds. Have your focus on something besides what's going on in your own head, whatever problems or issues are going on. For me as a kid, it was the fact that I was a closeted gay kid, and, the world seemed awful and I was doomed. But when I was birding, all of that fell away, and I was paying attention to the greater world and not my little problems. And I think whatever your problems are, whatever you're focused on, it can only be beneficial to be out in nature and focus the way you have to be focused when you're birding to get yourself outside your own head. So I think that restorative thing is really, really powerfully necessary for us, particularly as black people, because again, remember, birds fly. The ultimate expression of freedom, and for people who have known slavery, who have known being downtrodden, or are still being put upon today, to have these icons of freedom that you can focus on, it's just incredibly powerful.
I never thought of a bird as an icon of freedom. You're making me wrestle with that frame. It makes sense to me, but never quite until just now thought of birds as icons of freedom. And I love the way Christian connects that, of course, to the black experience in this country. When you are focused in your bird watching, what are you seeing? I mean, here's what I've never done it. And I keep saying I'm going to do it one day just to experience it. So here's what I do resonate with. I resonate obviously with being out in nature. I resonate being focused on something other than my cell phone or my smart device or my computer or my problems for that matter. I resonate with that. But when I am bird watching, two questions here. What am I seeing? What am I looking for? Those are my questions, Christian Cooper.
Sure. You are looking usually for a particular kind of movement. For example, if you're in the woods, you're not looking for the movement of a leaf in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
You are looking for, a particular sharp movement amongst the branches that's maybe going up instead of, a falling leaf, which is only going to move down. And when your eye is trained for that kind of movement, and you pick it up as you go along, then you zero in on that, or you're also listening. That, for me, that's huge. I'm what they call an ear birder. I rely heavily on my ears to help me find the bird.
Mm-hmm.
So you're sorting through all these different sounds and picking out the ones that are like, ooh, I don't know what that is. I want to go find out, and you go chase it. And after a while, it doesn't turn off. A good example is, I'll be in the middle of Manhattan. I'm walking down 9th Avenue. There's traffic. There's a construction site. There are people walking by having conversations. I'm having my own conversation. But in the midst of all that city sound, I hear click, 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 click. And it just like cuts through everything else.
Mm.
And my brain says, oh, there's an American kestrel here, our smallest falcon, right in the middle of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend looked at me and was like, what are you talking about? How can you possibly know that? And I'm like, well, look up there. And up at the top of Water Tower, there's a kestrel perched, looking for prey. And it's because I heard it, I was able to zero in on it. So, that's the kind of thing that happens when you're birding long enough. And it comes gradually. And that's the fun of it, is that you keep learning. It keeps growing. There's so much more to it every day.
Yeah. Here's a. They say there are no silly questions. I'm not sure I believe that. Having done this for as many years as I've done it, Christian, I'm not sure that I believe that there are no silly questions. Here's one coming, perhaps right now. You spend your time in Manhattan, as you mentioned a moment ago. Is there a difference in bird watching, city birds versus country birds?
Sometimes. Best example is maybe red-tailed hawks, which are pretty much across the continent, but New York City hawks have a New York City attitude because they've grown up around people their whole lives. So normally, when you're in the country, a red-tailed hawk will spook at 200 yards and fly away.
Mm-hmm.
In New York City, you're 10 feet away and it's looking at you and it's like, yeah. So they have because they've just grown up around people their whole lives. So they have a New York City attitude.
Yeah,
but generally, I mean, the same things that apply when you're birding in the city are going to apply wherever you bird. And that's another wonderful thing about birding is that it is everywhere. I don't care where you are. I don't care where you travel to. You're going to be able to look for birds. And it just adds a whole new dimension to the world, to your travels, to where you are. I can tell you when and where I am by what I hear. Like I hear, oh, Sam, Peabody, 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 as I'm walking through a park.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, oh, I'm in the East Coast and it's wintertime in New York because that's white-throated sparrow song, and they're only in New York in the wintertime. So, it just changes your whole relation to the world.
Yeah. I was laughing when you were talking about the boldness of the birds in New York. Yeah, I've had some rats in New York walk up to me.
Oh, for sure. I live in the most rat-infested part of New York City, in Manhattan, so
Yeah.
I hear you completely.
Yeah, I have them walk up and look at me and ask me what's in my hand. They want my leftover food that I'm trying to take back to the hotel. So I can't imagine the birds in New York are any more bold than the rats in New York. But I digress on that point.
Well, the wonderful thing is that those bold birds will eat the rats. Those red-tailed hawks and are eating the rats, so they're helping us out.
There you go. All right. Hooray! In that case, hooray for the birds then. Hooray for the birds. Let me just ask you whether or not you were in Central Park as a space, and obviously that moment with you and this white woman became, it went viral. Everybody's seeing it all around the world. But as a space for all the places you hang out in New York, is Central Park the space? Is that the place for bird watching in New York City?
Actually, there are a whole bunch of places for birding in New York City. And in fact, I'm a board member of New York City Audubon, and we put out something called Birding by Subway, which is a leaflet that tells you all the different places you can get to in New York City in all 5 boroughs where you can bird. But Central Park is special in some regards because during the migration, as birds are flying along the Atlantic Flyway, they get to New York City and they see this big sea of concrete. But then there's that one emerald jewel, that rectangle in the middle of Manhattan that has water and trees. And so the birds just funnel in, and it's what's called a migrant trap. It concentrates the migrating birds. So that's one reason why during migration, Central Park is such a favorite spot, because you will see more birds in less space than you would see otherwise.
Yeah, I had a guest on this program some weeks ago, and I'm struggling to call his name right now. I talk to multiple people every day, hosting obviously a 3-hour program, and I'm blanking on his name right now. It may come to me, but the point I want to push to is that he was on talk about a number of things, including the push inside of these Audubon societies to change the names of some of these birds, because they were given racist names or names that are deemed racist all these years later. You know this story?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's been a big issue we've all been wrestling with in the birding community.
Yeah. Tell me more from your perspective.
Sure. Basically, it's not just that some of the names are for racists. That's true. And some of the names are for great people.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, all these names were slapped on these birds during this, colonialist expansion by, people of European ancestry, giving these birds names that were important to them for whatever reason. And it's like, okay, but what does that really have to do with the bird?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't. It doesn't help you know what the bird is if you know that there's a Wilson's warbler. Do you know what you're looking for when you hear Wilson's warbler? No.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hear, black-capped warbler, well, you at least know you're looking for a bird with a black cap. So the push is to give these birds names that are actually useful for knowing something about them, and get rid of the names not only because they're racist, but because the whole sort of trend of naming birds by European settlers was kind of racist to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, by giving all the birds names that are useful and getting rid of the old person names, where you don't have to make judgment calls. You don't have to sit there and spend the rest of your life going, oh, okay, this guy was good, but this guy was awful. Or, no, I think that guy was good and that guy was – no, none of that. Just get rid of all the person names and give the birds names that are actually useful to birders and other people who are just starting birding.
Mm-hmm. How's that process going? I can only imagine if a bird has been named after somebody famous or well-to-do or whatever it is, there's pushback by those persons and those families and those societies, pushback against changing these names. So how's that process working?
Well, what's interesting is that the process, first of all, is just beginning, and it's going to happen gradually.
Right.
But it's sort of like, how do you explain it? Of course, there's resistance from people who don't want to see names change.
Sure.
The old guard who don't want to see change. But the thing is, bird names change all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, we had a thing called the marsh hawk. They don't call it the marsh hawk anymore. They call it the northern harrier. And so, since names change all the time, it's not that big a deal.
Okay.
And people are coming to realize, hey, this isn't that big a deal. And what other people are realizing is that, hey, this is kind of fun. We get to pick new names for all these birds. And, when I've been out in the field, people have been lobbing out possibilities and having a little fun with it. So, I think people are coming around, which is great.
Speaking of being out in the field, that's what he does for his Nat Geo program. It's called Extraordinary Birder. We'll talk more expressly about the TV program, Extraordinary Birder, again, on Nat Geo when we come forward. He has a new book out called Better Living Through Birding, Notes from a Black Man in the Natural World. As you can see, he turned that drama into an opportunity. I want to talk about that part as well, not just the projects, but how one goes from a moment that is caught on tape, that is seen around the world, that is racist to its core. You take that and you turn it into something beautiful, like a TV program and a book, and then some. Our guest is Christian Cooper on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. More video footage of the beating of African-American Tyree Nichols at the hands of Memphis, Tennessee police has been released. The city of Memphis released the video on its website. There are several hours of video from angles including traffic, neighborhood, and business cameras, as well as additional officer body cam and dash cam footage. 5 officers were charged with Nichols' murder. The special prosecutor in a 2020 election interference case in Georgia of former President Trump is reaching a temporary agreement in his divorce case. Special prosecutor Nathan Wade entered into an agreement Tuesday, avoiding testimony that would have potentially asked him to talk about an alleged romantic relationship with Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis. Both are African Americans. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
CHP still working on a crash in Rancho Cucamonga, 2 lanes, block 210 west, bound before Day Creek Boulevard, and traffic jams up back at Citrus Avenue. In Pomona, got an accident on the 71 southbound and Mission Boulevard. Fast lane is blocked off, and that's why you're still back at the 10 and the 57. And got an accident now in Pico Rivera on the 605 southbound past Whittier Boulevard. He's stuck in the carpool lane and traffic backing up towards Peck Road, and that's getting worse. And got a crash in Carson, blocking 2 mid lanes right now, 91 westbound at Avalon Avenue. You're going to slow down at Cherry.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Another poor defensive effort by the Lakers led to another loss Tuesday night. The Lakers gave up 138 points to Atlanta. They lost by 16. Over the past 2 games, the Lakers have given up a combined 273 points. The Lakers did not have Anthony Davis. He sat out with a sore left hip and a sore Achilles tendon. Austin Reeves led the Lakers with 28 points. LeBron had 20 points and 8 assists. The Lakers are back under 500 for the 14th time this season. They're at Boston Thursday night. The Clippers are back in action tonight. They're at Washington. Game 4 of their 7-game road trip, 4 p.m. tip-off. Former Lakers guard Rajon Rondo is in trouble. Rondo was arrested after he was pulled over on a highway in southern Indiana. Rondo was charged with illegal possession of a gun and drugs possession. Rondo helped the Lakers win the NBA championship in 2021. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice, and injustice. The courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. If we're the ones disproportionately impacted by these climate catastrophes, why should we be silent? Turning up the volume all year long on the climate conversation for KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin ultra strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
You're all set with your Medicare prescriptions, Mrs. Brown.
This is not just low-cost copays at Walgreens.
I can actually help you set up 90-day refills if you want.
This is having a partner you can trust. Get low-cost copays, 90-day refills, and delivery from your neighborhood Walgreens. This is being independent. Together. Walgreens.
Restrictions apply. For details, see walgreens.com/pharmacy.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency. All over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face. When it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah, breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Christian Cooper, host of the Nat Geo program Extraordinary Birder. His new book is called Better Living Through Birding, Notes from a Black Man in the Natural World. All right, Christian, tell me about the Nat Geo show. How'd that come to be?
My phone rang, and an executive from Nat Geo said, "Oh, we've been thinking about doing a birding show. How would you like to be a part of that?" And I thought, okay. So it was like kind of a no-brainer. Sometimes opportunities are presented to you, and, you have the choice of whether to walk through them or not. But more importantly, I think, you got to keep your focus. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you have a chance to do something not only for yourself, but for other people, mm-hmm. and to push the ball forward. And by doing the show, I have a chance to get everybody involved in birding, more people, and especially more of our people, which is awesome. By being a person visibly out there birding, I get to move the ball forward. And then, there's other ways to move the ball forward when you get the opportunity. And this came up when Amy Cooper, the charges got dropped against her. My phone started ringing off the hook. Everyone wanted to comment from me about what I thought about this. And, I thought, oh, yeah, I could say something about this, except I don't really care about her. I don't care to continue talking about her. But you know what I did want to talk about? I wanted to talk about the fact that our people in Washington, D.C. don't have a voice. Mm. And that's what I used the comment for. I said, you know what? If you're outraged about the fact the charges were dropped against her, you should be 10 times more outraged that the people of Washington, D.C. don't have a voice, don't have senators representing them, even though they have a greater population than the all-white state of Wyoming or the all-white state of Vermont.
Yep. Taxation.
So you take these opportunities and you use them to push the ball forward.
As they say, taxation without representation. It's been on their license plate for years. Yeah. So I'm glad you used that moment. I noticed that, and I'm glad you kudos to you for using that moment to sort of elevate in that way. A couple of things come to mind as you were talking a moment ago. What is your best appeal? Because you've said a few times to our people. What is your best appeal to black folk, to African Americans in particular, for how their lives would be aided and abetted by bird watching?
Too often, because of historical trends, because of economic trends, our people are cut off from easy access to green spaces. Mm-hmm. And by focusing on birding, that helps to reverse that trend, at least get us out into the green spaces that are available to us. And that will create more of a push to have those spaces available to us. So that's one way in which I think, in particular for black people, birding is important.
Yeah. I played a clip, as you know, earlier from the show, the Nat Geo show, Extraordinary Birding. Before I get to your book, I played the clip of the show. What is the goal? What's the goal of each episode of Extraordinary Birding? What are you aiming to accomplish here?
Each episode goes to a different location and explores not just the bird issues, but also the bird and people issues. When birds and people come together, what are the good things? What are the bad things? What are the special birds in this area? How do they impact, people's lives? And the episode I am most proud of, because so much of me went into that episode, is the Alabama episode. Mm-hmm. Because I had never been to Alabama. I'm a northern boy, born and raised several generations in the North. And to me, the idea of going to the Deep South was like, no way, no how do I want to do that to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you go back far enough in the history of any African Americans, and our roots are in the South. And so my dad's people came from Alabama. And so Alabama Audubon called me up and said, hey, do you want to come down? And I thought, this is the way to get down there. And so when I did the episode, and I was set in Alabama, I was basically recreating that experience because, and you might think, what is civil rights history? What does family history have to do with birds? Well, actually, when you think about it, the birds migrate from the south to the north because when they get to the north, they have opportunity. They have the chance to raise their young where there's an abundance of insects that isn't there year round. That's exactly why Black people did the Great Migration, because there was opportunity in the north, a chance to raise your children with a better chance at life, at a good life. And that's why we left the South, and why my family left the South and went to New York. And so those parallels and those intersections are just so fascinating. And that's what we explored to a great extent in the Alabama episode.
I'm sitting there speechless, which is rare for me. But I love the brilliant ways in which you weave this notion of birding with the story of Black people. And every time you do it, it strikes me as rather brilliant. But it's amazing to hear you again weave these tales of your birding experience to the story. The journey of Black folk in this country. I get it, and I love it. Let's talk about your book now. The book is called Better Living Through Birding, Notes from a Black Man in the Natural World. Let's talk about the book, Christian.
Someone said, you should write a memoir, and I was like, who the hell wants to read my memoir? And then I saw that Colin Jost, the guy who does Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live,
on SNL, yeah,
written a memoir.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's 12 years old. What does he have to say? So I'm like, if he could write a memoir, I could write a memoir. So I sat down to write it. But really what I'm trying to do is just sort of, put the salient aspects of my life in context. And that includes, the incident in Central Park. But that's the thing, is that by writing this memoir, I got to not only tell that story in greater detail, but put it into context. The context of, African-American history, the context of Central Park history, and which is woven together with African-American history, because a lot of people don't realize that when Central Park was created, part of it was created by bulldozing a thriving African-American community that was there in that location. So, you get to weave all of that story together, but also weave it into my own personal life, because that incident was like, 2 minutes of my life? There's a whole lot of other stuff that went on before that in many ways is more interesting, like working in Marvel Comics, which was a blast and so much fun and also significant in that, while I was working there, I was working on the comic book that brought out the first openly gay superhero for Marvel. So that was a big deal and caused a lot of controversy. And what was that about and what was that like? So I get to talk about all those things and have a lot of fun doing it.
Yep. When we come forward, I want to talk more about the book, but I really want to delve into, to your point, this incident in Central Park became huge news in this country, international news, frankly. Just 2 minutes to your point. But it fundamentally changed your life in a lot of ways. Your life it was life before the 2 minutes and certainly life after the 2 minutes. But that 2 minutes sort of changed your life. And I want to just kind of come to this point of how you process that there are 2 minutes of your life that change the rest of your life. And then I want to talk more broadly, as I said a few moments ago, about what you've learned and because I think this question may lead to a response from Christian Cooper that is both instructive and informative and perhaps even inspiring. Because as long as we're Black, somebody told me years ago, it's actually Bernard Lafayette, one of Dr. King's lieutenants in the Civil Rights Movement, who was just here in L.A. a few weeks ago. Bernard Lafayette told me many years ago when I was just a college student, Tavis, as long as you Black, you're going to be in struggle. So the sooner you fall in love with the struggle, the better off you're going to be. As long as you Black, you're going to be in struggle. The sooner you fall in love with it, the better off you will be. Every one of us as Black people has to navigate through all kinds of struggle. But what has Christian Cooper learned about having a moment in your life, in his case, 2 minutes, that changes your life, but you take that incident and you do something with it? That's what I want to talk about. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Can't sleep with this cold.
Honey.
Honey?
Honey, you need NyQuil Severe Honey.
NyQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a dreamy honey taste.
Feeling better, honey? Honey? I'll take that as a yes.
Try NyQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu symptom relief. NyQuil Severe with honey flavor. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, fever. Honeylicious, best sleep with a cold. Medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Get the appliances you need right away at Lowe's. Explore the largest assortment of brands you trust, like Whirlpool, Samsung, and LG, in-store or online at the best values. Plus, take advantage of our everyday financing offers on top items, from refrigerators to laundry pairs. And there's more. Get your new appliances delivered or installed quickly at your convenience. Because Lowe's knows appliances, Lowe's knows home improvement. Subject to credit approval.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and the Bird Watcher, Christian Cooper, who's the host of his own program on Nat Geo called Extraordinary Birder, and his new book is called Better Living Through Birding, Notes from a Black Man, that is, in the natural world. It's his memoir, and I am mad at him. Other folk have had memoirs who've done far less and live fewer years. So I'm with Christian. If they can write one, so can I. Why can't I should say? And he did it beautifully. Let me come back to this point we were talking about a moment ago. Watching my time's getting away from me here. But to your point, that was like a couple of minutes. But that couple minutes changed your entire life. In a lot of positive ways. I mean, here's the Nat Geo program, here's the book, and other things that you're doing in this country, and I suspect around the globe. What's your best advice? You talked earlier, and I love what you said earlier about remaining calm. If you stay calm, there's a greater chance that you win. But for Black folk in particular, who find themselves in situations like the one you found yourself in. Again, we see these videos all the time. Beyond staying calm, what have you learned about how to take a moment that is filled with tragedy and drama potentially, and turning it, Christian, into these major opportunities?
Well, I think, first of all, I have to address what you said a little bit earlier, which is that, this 2 minutes changed my life completely. It did, and it didn't.
Fair enough.
And in some respects, that answers your question,
Sure.
which is that before the incident, there were things that I'd been doing for years, which is going into the schools in New York City, public schools, and getting the kids outside and teaching them about birds and spreading that quote-unquote gospel of birding. I've been doing that for like a quarter century at that point.
Sure.
And then suddenly the incident happened. Well, what that let me do is it opened up enough doors that now I get to spread the gospel of birding just on a bigger platform and to more people. So, yes, it changed things, and yet what I'm doing is what I've been doing all along. And when people say to me, oh, how come you're so good at doing the TV show? I'm like, hey, I've been doing it in front of fifth graders and third graders for 25 years. If you can handle them, you can do a TV show. So I think that's part of the answer to your question. I think the other answer is, we all have the ability to make a difference in the world. I think we forget that. We abdicate that power. And both my parents were civil rights activists. And they never said it explicitly, but both my sister and I, it is embedded in our DNA in just the way they brought us up. This simple idea that if you have the power to change the world, to fix something, it is your responsibility to get out there and try and do something to fix it. If you see a problem, it's your responsibility to try and fix it.
Yep.
And there's no like, oh, wow, isn't that terrible? I wish somebody would do something about that. No, that somebody is you.
Yeah.
And you find a way to do something to change that. So, with all these things that have happened in my life, I look for those opportunities where I can take that leverage and use it to try to fix some of the things that I think are wrong with the world, like DC statehood, like the fact that black people aren't out there the way we should be in the national parks and birding. So.
Yeah. No, I love it. My version of that is assign yourself. Sometimes you have to assign yourself to do what needs to be done. Our remaining moments with the bird watcher, Christian Cooper, when we come forward.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful they saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit LAFLA.org. LAFLA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Christian Cooper. I got about 3 minutes left. I've enjoyed this conversation immensely with Christian Cooper. 3 minutes left here. Christian is a self-described blurred. That's black nerd. That's his own description of himself. A blurred, a black nerd. I think I want to close with this, Christian. We'll see where this takes us. And this, in part, brings this conversation sort of full circle for all that we've talked about in this hour again, which I've delighted in. What is it to your mind that birds can teach us? Let me preface it by saying this. One of my favorite songs is "His Eye is on the Sparrow," and for those who know that song, you know the lyric. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I don't mean to proselytize, but I love that. His eye is on the sparrow, and if he's watching the sparrow, then I know he can keep his eye on me. What is it that birds can teach us, Christian Cooper, about life?
Birds can connect us to the world in a way that no other creature can. I find that every day. I find myself understanding more about the world every day, understanding that me being here in New York or in California, that there are birds that are going between those places, that are going to South America and coming back to New York. That connects me to people in South America. It just makes me part of a larger world and a larger universe. And that understanding is tremendously powerful. And I think that's the most important thing birds can teach us. And the other thing is that they are, as I said, they are symbols of freedom. They can fly. They are the best flyers on the planet. There is no part of the world that they can't reach because the entire globe is covered by that atmosphere that they can travel in with just a thought. By just holding out their equivalent of arms, they can launch themselves and move in any direction, up, down, left, right. And that incredible freedom is so inspiring to everybody, but especially to us Black folk, I think. Yeah. And so I think that's the thing we can really take from birds.
You're doing great work, Christian, and nobody better prepared. I say this, when that incident in Central Park came to the fore, and I saw, as I said earlier in this conversation, how brilliantly you handled it and how you stayed calm in that moment. And I've seen all the stuff you've done since then, the Nat Geo show, the book. It just reminds me that we are all prepared for these moments. And everything that you had done prior to that moment prepared you for that moment, and that's why you handled it with such grace and with such brilliance. And you're doing that now and all the other work that you put your hands to. His Nat Geo program is called Extraordinary Birder. His new book is called Better Living Through Birding, Notes from a Black Man in the Natural World. You, of course, know his name, Christian Cooper. Christian, an honor, sir, to have had you on this program. I enjoyed this immensely. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Tavis, thanks for having me, and keep doing the work you're doing, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All the best to you. That's our program, 3 hours gone, poof, just like that. Back here tomorrow, Lord willing, to do it all over again. Until then, thanks for tuning in to Tavis Smiley. And as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.